What is the single most important thing you would tell to a new DM? Oh, that's such a good question. And it's really hard because there's lots of things I want to tell to a new DM. I think the single most important thing for a new DM to recognize about the game that they might not recognize about the game is that the real story of the game happens while you're playing. You're not making a story up ahead of time. You are setting up a situation, and then the story is going to come from setting up the situation and having the characters act in that situation and the world reacting to the actions of the characters. That is when we talk about like the core mechanic of the game or the core interaction of the game of the DM describes the situation, the player describes what they want to do, and the DM adjudicates the results. That is pretty much the game loop that occurs for most role-playing games, lots of role-playing games, and most role-playing games that have a GM and a player, certainly for D&D and 5e. And of course, there's complications in there. Like, what if it turns out that the thing they want to do isn't a sure thing? Well, then you roll a die, you pick a difficulty class, you add modifiers, and so on. But the real gameplay loop is the GM describes the situation going on in the game, the player describes what they want their character to do, and the GM adjudicates the result. That is the loop. And that key of setting up the situation is the hard part. I think a lot of GMs, a lot of new GMs come there wanting to tell a story, and they've written a story, and they are spending a lot of time thinking about what's going to happen based on things the characters are going to do that the characters might not do. And that's why situation-based gaming, I think, is a much stronger, more resilient, and far more fun approach, which is a less story-focused prep, and prepping instead for the story to occur during the game itself. I think it's a weird bit about understanding how role-playing games work. But beyond understanding that idea of like, hey, we're all sitting around a table telling tales of make-believe with a rule set that's helping us keep in line of what GMing is, what RPGs are like, the next step is understanding that like you're not coming there telling a story that the players and the characters navigate in one path. You are creating a situation and the characters are going to navigate that situation. There are veteran DMs who don't really understand that. So I think that is the single most important thing that a new GM can really pick up on that is not typical to how they think about it. However, I have more, and I have these top tips for dungeon masters. It really should be top tips for game masters. I'd probably change the title on this, that I wrote back in 2021. And I kind of took, this is from conversations that I've had with all kinds of game masters and from experience playing lots of games and talking to lots of games and doing lots of study into this topic. So these aren't just my ideas. These are ones that I have taken from many different sources. And as you can see, the very first one is let the story unfold at the table. Set up situations and let the characters navigate them. Those are actually like, I kind of put those two into that one rule. Other ones are be on the character's side, that you're there to make them look like big damn heroes. So what are you setting up your situations to make sure that the characters look cool? Bathe in their victories, right? This isn't a competitive game. You're not trying to thwart the characters. You're trying the characters to look awesome. How do you get the characters to look awesome? Use tools and techniques that help you prepare to improvise. I talk about this a lot in our prep. I talk about it a lot with the tools that we use. What are the tools that can help you let that story unfold in ways that you didn't know? Focusing on your next game, keep that aperture closed. I have a bunch of friends that I'm going to be playing with in 1 hour. We're going to have about a 3-ish hour game. I want to make sure that I have all the material that I need to run that 3-hour game. I don't need to worry about the game we're running after. I don't need to worry about where the campaign is going to go. I really want to focus on what is the next game that we're going to run, and maybe what are the seeds that I'm going to put in the next game that will feed us to the game after that. But focusing on your next game. Build the world, campaign, and adventures from the characters outwards. Spiral development. We talk about this in Return to the Lazy Dungeon Master. Where do you start? And start around the characters and build outwards. I have this dragon empire. I have all of these dragon lords. I have this massive campaign that I'm working on, but I'm focused on one spot. And that one spot is the 440 Fingers outpost that exists in the middle of the desert, that is sort of in the outer fringes of the draconic control, but is a part of a major trade route that's going across. And the adventure is there is a well that is critical for all of the animals and all of the people, and the well is corrupt. And what is corrupting the well? That is the adventure, right? And that's the thing that we're going to focus on in the first session of our game. I'm not worried about the great big plot line that's going on after that. I have some ideas, I have some things, but I'm not filling those out. I'm worried about my next game. Pay attention to pacing. Pacing is really important. How do you make sure that the pacing stays high, that you have upward beats and downward beats and upward beats and downward beats so the players are staying engaged with the game? Too many upward beats and the game seems boring. Too many downward beats and it seems depressing and lame. You want to make sure that good things are happening and bad things are happening, good things are happening and bad things are happening, and you want to have your hands on the dials so that you can speed the game up when you need to speed it up, slow it down when it's time to slow things down, that you can keep that pacing. Pacing is a really critical skill. It is a lifelong skill that takes us forever to do. All of us kind of suck at it. Sometimes we get a few different tools that help us, but pacing is really important. Focusing on the fiction first and mechanics second. This is a game about telling a story. The mechanics are helping us tell that story. It is not just wargaming at the table anymore like it was 50 years ago. There's definitely war games out there that are very heavy on mechanics, but the story is what we're going to remember. The story of the characters, the story of their actions, the story that takes place during the game. The mechanics are there to serve the story. So make sure that we are focused on that story first and choosing what monsters we pick, what DCs we set, what kind of situation. We think about how that fits based on the fiction and the situation of the game. And recalling that this is a wonderful, endless hobby that we can continue to play and that we can continue to get better at for the rest of our lives. So those, you cheated. You asked for one. That one is that one that I brought up where I'm combining these two together is recognizing that the story takes place at the table, that you are not building a story ahead of time when you're running. That's definitely my number one tip. If you enjoyed this show and you want to see more stuff like this, the best way to do so is to subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. You can find a link down in the show notes. It's absolutely free to sign up. You get a free adventure generator for signing up, and you get to see links to all of the other material that I publish all over the web in a newsletter that I publish every week. You can also become a patron of Sly Flourish. Patrons get access to all kinds of tips, tools, tricks, source books, adventures, and other things to help you run your games. You also get access to the incredible Lazy DM community over on our Discord server, and you can pick up any of my books, including Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, The Lazy DM's Companion, The Lazy DM's Workbook, Forge of Foes, and much more at the Sly Flourish bookstore. The links for all of those are in the show notes. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play a RPG.